You're welcome. Sorry, I can't help myself.
You're fine. I think we'll go ahead and get started with Ethan's program. So first of all, Ethan, thank you so much for joining us this morning on the call. As I mentioned before, it's a lot of information to dissect for our businesses and for our chamber staff. So it's nice to have you here to break it all down for us. Ethan is the manager of congressional and public affairs for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He works in the Midwest region, so we get to see him, the chamber team gets to see him quite often at conferences and things like that. He's a huge Bears fan. Woo! That's why we love him. I'm going to turn it over to you, Ethan, just to kind of go through your little presentation. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody else just so there's not distraction. And if you guys have questions throughout Ethan's talk, you can just toss them in the chat. It's on the bottom. You just click on that and hit chat. You can shoot the question and we'll get it to him either at the end, or you can also just ask him at the end as well. Since we're a small group, I don't think it'll be a big deal. So with that, Ethan, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Tara. I'll start by sharing my screen so y'all can see my PowerPoint. After this is all said and done, I hope I never have to see my face on a screen ever again. It gets very annoying just to stare at yourself when you're on these calls. So let's see here. All right. Can everyone see that all right? We've had problems with getting it in the middle of the screen before, so just want to make sure you can kind of see that whole slide. There's no margins cut off or anything. Looks good. Perfect. All right. Well, before I get started, I just want to let you know I got a virtual first grade classroom next to me, and I got a dog that's fairly vocal as folks walk by. So if there's a little noise coming through, I'm just going to apologize from the start. We'll try to keep it as quiet and moving quickly as possible. So the Federal CARES Act, it was passed 2 weeks ago, signed into law by the president. Not this past Friday, but the Friday before. So it's everything is very new, and we're all kind of drinking from the fire hose. Talk a little bit about this bill and what's in it. Overall, it's a $2 trillion package. However, the Fed is able to leverage this bill and to grow it by $4 trillion to be a total of $6 trillion. You've probably heard of it called the Phase 3 bill, and the only reason it gets that nickname is because it's the third bill that Congress has passed in an attempt to combat COVID-19. Before we get into more aspects about what's in there for businesses, let's talk quickly about what's in there for all taxpayers, or taxpayers like you and I. If you're a single filer making less than $75,000, you'll qualify for a $1,200 stimulus check. If you're a joint filer grossing less than $150,000, you'll qualify for a $2,400 stimulus check. And on top of that, $500 per child. So a family of four making less than $150,000, you'll more than likely be getting $3,400 in stimulus. There's also the head of household. So for if you're a house that only has one person in a couple that is full-time employed, or if you're a single parent or whatever your case may be, that's capped out at $112,500. So also in the bill is expanded unemployment. So UI is obviously ran by the state, but what the federal government has done here is they've kind of plussed up these funds. So each person who qualifies for unemployment in your state will get $600 per week on top of their state benefit, and this will run through July 31st. Couple little points on this. Once a employee is called back to work, so let's say a business takes a PPP loan and they're going to start paying their workers, or they're going to keep paying their workers, or they're bringing workers back, this benefit will sunset. This benefit will end for them. Or if we kind of get ahead of schedule here and we start beating this virus sooner, and we start going back to work, then this benefit will end. Also, you cannot quit your job and get this benefit. So while a lot of the typical rules of getting unemployment will be waived, the looking for another job, how long have you been laid off, those sort of questions are waived. There is still strict rules that you're not able to just quit your job and get this benefit. So there is a little backstop on that. Just to kind of go over things that are in here for all businesses, I'll talk about what they all qualify for. I'll talk about what larger ones qualify for, and we'll spend the bulk of our time on what small businesses qualify for. That's kind of been catching all the headlines, and I think the most robust program in the whole bill. We'll talk about the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP as it's better been called, and then the economic injury, disaster loans, or EIDL loans as they're called. These are the more typical loans that the SBA has been running for years now. It's just been the parameters have just been grown to cover COVID-19. So things in there for all businesses. You can choose if you want to delay your payroll taxes between now and the first of the year. You can pay, and then you'll have to pay 50% by the end of 2021 and the other 50% by the end of 2022. So this is not a payroll tax cut. It's more of a holiday, and it's a way for businesses to delay their portion of payroll tax to the 6.2% tax between now and the first of the year. However, if you go this route, you cannot get a PPP loan. So there's no double dipping here. Other changes, if you operate on a loss for 2018, 19, or 20, you can carry that back another 5 years. You can accelerate the recovery of AMT credits. You can also increase the limit on interest deductibility to 50% for 2019 and 20. And there's also the QIP fix. This is a change from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It's a way to get more, it's a way for businesses like bars and restaurants, retail stores that have done improvements to their property to get more cash in their pockets. If you qualify for this, you'll definitely know because you've been waiting for it to be fixed since 2017. Other things that are in there for all businesses is the employee retention credit. This has not gotten a lot of press because it was something that the Senate was able to get in there kind of last minute. But I'll just run through of what this program is and how to qualify for it. So if you're a business that's been shut down because governor has shut you down, or if you've had a drop of 50% in gross revenue or more, you'll qualify for this credit. It's a tax credit that will give the business owner up to $10,000 per worker at 50%. So it's the Washington, D.C. way of saying that you can qualify for up to a $5,000 tax credit for each person that you pay. So businesses that employ more than 100 workers will qualify to get this credit if they pay folks that are no longer providing services. And while the guidance on this has been weak, we're still looking for a little more explanation of what that means. More or less what we're pushing for and what we're kind of hoping it means is that workers that you're paying to just sit home, if you do that, you'll qualify for this credit. However, if you're a business that employs less than 100 folks, you'll qualify for this credit for every person you pay. So I like to use bars and restaurants as kind of my real world example. I think it's kind of the most easy to understand. So if you had a restaurant shut down and you sent some workers home and you have some workers there to help you prep for your carry out service and all that, for each worker you pay, whether they're the ones actually at your bar or restaurant or at home, you can qualify for up to this $5,000 credit. However, if you go this route, you can't get a PPP loan. Again, no double dipping one or the other. Things that are out there for the mid-size and larger businesses is this $454 billion loan from the Treasury. This, again, we thought we'd get guidance on this on Monday, still very vague of what and who qualifies for this. The one thing we do know is this is the loan program where the airlines will be dipping into. However, if you're able to get loans through this program, you're not able to use your loans on stock buybacks, and you also can't give bonuses to anyone in your C-suite. So you can't take the loan money and give a bonus to your CEO or CFO or whatever. So there's fairly robust restrictions on this loan money here. So to get to what's in here for small businesses, this is the bulk of what's in the bill here, and this is what's obviously getting the most attention. The PPP, it's a $349 billion program for small businesses, generally less than 500 workers. However, there's a calculation on the SBA's website. Let's say you maybe have 505 people working for you, but if you meet a limit on how much revenue you bring in and kind of how much your business is worth, you still might qualify for this. So it's not exactly a hard 500. So if you're in and around that area, definitely recommend going to their website and kind of going through their calculator to see if you qualify. Also 501c3s, sole proprietors, self-employed, independent contractors, all can qualify for this loan program. The loan is equal to lesser of 2.5 months of your average payroll, capped out at $10 million. And these are the loans that you're going to get through your local or national lenders. So what we've been recommending is that if you've done business with a bank before, to go back to that bank and kind of use them as your lender. It seems like most of those banks are prioritizing previous customers. What's nice about these loans is requirements are minimal. You don't need collateral or personal guarantee. And the beauty of this loan is that if you spend it on payroll or interest on your mortgage or rent or gas, electric, water, you will get this loan 100% forgiven and changed in from a loan to a grant. I just saw recently in the guidance that now it's not only interest on mortgage, I believe it'll be any interest on any debt. So it gives you a little more flexibility. However, as we kind of brought up during the pre-Q&A here, you want to spend 75% of the money you get from this loan on wages. And that covers everything, any benefit someone who works for you gets. So if they get health care, sick leave, and personal leave and all that, their portion of that is counted. So you'll take their actual wage and then all their benefits, and that's all counted in what is considered in this as payroll. Not your portion, but their portion. However, if you reduce the number of FTEs or cut wages by more than 25%, the amount that you can get transferred from the loan to a grant will go down. Obviously, this crisis didn't start when this bill was passed. So if you've had to lay off workers, but you bring them back and maintain them through June 30th, you'll still qualify for this loan to be turned into a grant. So there is some flexibility there. Highly recommend checking out our guide, uschamber.com/SB loans. This is a 4-page guide. It takes all the complicated language of these guidances and legislation and kind of boils it down into a much easier way to understand kind of what you qualify for, and you can kind of run the numbers yourself prior to going to the bank to kind of have a rough idea of what you'll qualify for. So on top of the PPP loans are EIDL loans, and these are the ones that I was talking about earlier that SBA has been offering these for a long time. They originally first brought out to cover, if a big storm came through, your town, or a tornado, it was to get cash in your pocket to kind of get back going again. Again, talk about the qualifiers, very similar to the PPP. Small businesses, including faith-based, had a few questions about churches. Churches were originally included, and then it seemed they were not, and now it seems like churches can get loans here. So kind of confusing, but it sounds like for the most part they will qualify. But again, anything less than 500 folks working there, independent contractor, sole proprietors, all qualify to get these EIDL loans. And it's up to a $2 million loan. It's a 30-year term, a rate of 3.75 or a 2.75 rate for nonprofits. What's nice is you can defer your payments up to a year. However, interest will still be adding up even if you defer your payments. The loans are based on credit scores. You don't need a tax return. You can get up to a $200,000 loan without a personal guarantee. Collateral is not needed for anything less than $25,000. And also there's, with this program, an up to $10,000 emergency grant, or kind of a cash advance, as I call it. In statute, it says once you apply, you should get it within 3 days, but the SBA is pretty bogged down. And folks obviously haven't been getting it in the 3 days, but the $10,000 is meant to kind of, it's the appetizer to whatever loan you're going to get. It's kind of to hold you over until you either get an EIDL loan or PPP loan. That said, if you get, let's say you get the $10,000 grant and you get a PPP loan for $100,000, that $10,000 you get will kind of be rolled into your PPP loan. So you won't have $110,000 turned in from a loan to a grant. You'll only get the grant for the $100,000 from the PPP loan. So that's, if you get this $10,000, plan on it kind of rolling into your PPP loan. Don't treat it as a bonus $10,000. Other things that businesses have had to deal with. This is going back to the phase 2 bill, so this is not in the CARES Act, but the paid sick leave requirements. Businesses with less than 500 folks are required to provide 10 days of paid sick leave if related to COVID-19. It can be taken if they're ill, if they're quarantined, or if they have to take care of a sick or quarantined family member or child during a school closure. The leave is paid at the regular rate, maxed out at $511 per day if you're taking it for yourself. Paid at a 2/3 rate, maxed out at $200 per day if you're taking care of a family member. And this is one of the few mandates that the federal government ever puts out that's 100% reimbursed by them. So you'll get this back in the form of tax credits. Also, this program sunsets at the end of 2020. So once we roll the calendars to 2021, this program will no longer be active. This leave is on top of anything that you already provide. So if you have a fairly robust sick leave program, this is on top of that. There is a exemption if you employ less than 50 folks, and this is only for the school or daycare closure. But if you can prove that it threatens the viability of your business, you don't have to provide leave for the school or daycare closure. However, this is pretty hard to qualify for. If you think you do qualify, contact the Department of Labor, and they'll be able to kind of run you through the process to see if you do or not. However, if you're able to telework like I can, your folks won't qualify for paid sick leave. Paid family leave, this happens after the paid sick leave runs out. Same kind of qualifiers, folks with less than 500 people working for them. This is a 10 paid sick leave if you have to take care of a child because of a school or child care closure caused by COVID-19. Again, like the sick leave, if you're taking care of a child, it's paid at a 2/3 regular rate, maxed out $200 per day, and no more than $10,000 total. This is on top of anything that you already provide. It's reimbursed by the federal government. There's that exemption again, hard to qualify for, but you might. And then just like the sick leave, if you can telework, you don't have to provide this program. Recommend going to uschamber.com for kind of more broad resources, or our small business website, uschamber.com/co. But if you're going to look at one thing that the chamber has put out, uschamber.com/SB loans, that's the 4-page guidance that kind of runs down how you qualify for a PPP loan, and then the calculation to get the rough number of what you will or could qualify for. I think at this point, we'll move to questions.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Ethan. I did have one question come in. They've had some people call who are unemployed, or whose unemployment was denied because the small nonprofit that they work for didn't participate or contribute to unemployment. Will they qualify for the stimulus of $600, or are they not eligible for any?
I don't think they would qualify. Kind of the one parameter that's there is you have to first qualify for the unemployment in your state. So I'm not sure if your state has accepted it. So I live in Minnesota. So I heard yesterday from one of our commissioners at Minnesota, they were kind of ahead of the curve. And if we are ever, ahead of the curve, we like to brag about it. So I'm not surprised I heard this, but that will be one of the first states to get that $600. The governor has to accept the money from the federal government. So all that being said, I would still have them contact your state's unemployment office to see if they might get that $600 per week. However, generally speaking, if you don't qualify to get unemployment through your state, you won't be able to get it. That's kind of the general rule of thumb.
Thank you, Ethan. Christina, I know that you mentioned a different question that you had before we got on the phone. Did Ethan answer that this question?
Yeah, I think I just was hearing some information about the tax credit, but not much was being said about the SBA for businesses for the tax credit. Just not a lot of details, I guess.
Which credit?
So I was hearing that there was 3 things, like the PPP, the EIDL, and then the tax credit. But then I wasn't hearing any details on the tax credit. So I think you kind of did talk about it a little bit, but.
Guess I'm not sure which credit you're talking about. Are you talking about the employee retention credit, that one?
Yeah, I think that's one that maybe there was not a lot of detail on it. So I took that one as that's what it was. I'm hoping that's what it is.
Yeah, there's still, we're really pushing for, at least for businesses that employ more than 100 folks, to, when they say not providing services, it's for businesses that are still paying their folks and that are sitting home and aren't doing anything. So they're not, bringing anything bottom line. They're more or less out of work, but they're still getting paid. That's our push. However, if you're less than 100, it doesn't matter. Any person you pay, you can qualify for up to that $5,000 loan. Or excuse me, credit, not loan, credit.
That makes sense. I do have another question. I have a family member that was being paid through their employer. They're big, a big corporation, and was just informed yesterday that their last paycheck will be in 2 weeks, and then they will need to file unemployment because they will get more money that way.
Yeah, so there is a possibility with the lump sum $600 per week. So if you break down what $600 per week, that's grossing $15 an hour. So if you're on, if you make less than $15 an hour, this will be a boost. Unfortunately, there weren't any, income limits on there that if you're below, let's say $40,000, this is your plus up amount. If you make more than $40,000 a year, this is your plus up. It's one lump sum. No matter who you are, that's what you qualify for. So there are situations at which you can make more on unemployment than you can working. That being said, it's up to the business owner to decide what they want to do. So there's kind of two options. Kind of one where the employee may benefit, but at the same time the business owner might want to keep them on as well because maybe they're partially open, or they want to keep them on payroll so they still get all the normal benefits that they do from being on payroll. So there are choices that business owners are going to have to make. It's not very cut and dry. It's not it's not a flow chart where you're at the top and then you have two choices and you go down this way. It's not easily laid out. It's unfortunate. It can be a tough choice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Ethan. Anybody else with questions? You can just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away. Oh, Myra Catherine, it looks like you have a question. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask Ethan?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ma'am.
So what we are finding at Pearl are a lot of former employees who weren't quite up for the child care challenge, who quit more than a year ago. We've received unemployment claims for someone who worked 4 days. And so what we're trying to figure out is, like, we aren't laying off our staff because we are open and we need them.
Sure.
And it's disheartening because they would make more if we laid them off and they could get this. I mean, it's just, they are in that, price rate, or, hourly wage, but we can't lay them off because I need them.
Right.
But if I were going to play unemployment and if our insurance was going to go up, I would want it to be for people who are actually working for me, not people who quit, over a year ago. And so how and when will we be able to, what's the word that we're looking for? Argue that, I guess. I can't think of the right word.
So the good thing is that your portion of what you as a business pay into UI won't go up. So you guys won't be, held, carrying the bag of providing this extra $600. This is something that is all coming from the federal government. That being said, this was, if you think back to when this bill was being passed, seems like an eternity ago now, but there was it seemed like it was going to go through. Then all of a sudden, there was a holdup in the Senate talking about the possibility of people making more money on unemployment than they are working. And this was kind of that catch here. However, most senators felt in the need to get this program going now, and for every minute that they, kind of filibustered this, was another minute that businesses weren't able to get money. And while I think a lot of members of Congress felt that this was not the best way to go, they wanted to get the program going. They felt the House had slowed this down enough that they were going to succumb to some pressures that they, otherwise in a perfect world probably would have fought for another week or two. But given the environment, they were willing to kind of take the chance of a less than perfect program getting through than no program. So it's certainly not perfect. It's a tough choice. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of tough choices made between now and the next month or two. Yeah, I guess that's really all I can say about it. It's an unfortunate externality of this bill.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else want to ask a question? Feel free to unmute yourself or send it to me in a chat if you're scared to talk.
And actually, the congressman might have a little more insight to that, since he, he sits on the House and he saw from, kind of the front row of the delay and slowing tactics by the House. So he would have a better idea. Obviously he was not part of that, but he was kind of front row to all that. And he might be able to provide some more clarity on that. He voted for the bill, as they all did, but I'm sure that was a concern of his, as it was to most of the Senate. So again, not perfect, but it was about how quickly can we get money in the hands of businesses and then keep people on their standard track of payroll. It's an 880-page bill, but it can be kind of broken down into one statement, in that we wanted, or not we, I'm not part of the federal government. The federal government wanted folks to still have their same revenue streams coming in, however that may be. Now, obviously, it's not because of revenue that's traditionally coming into the business, but they wanted people to stay flush through this pandemic. That was the idea here.
Thanks, Ethan.
Any other questions?
Making it too easy on you. All right. Well, Ethan, I thank you for your time. We appreciate the updates, and we might have you back again if things change here. But thank you very much for the deep dive. We appreciate all your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Kim, do we know the status of the congressman?
I just texted him and he should be on any second.
Perfect. Tara Ewing, I see your name on here. Are you on the call, and would you mind using the next minute or two just to kind of give an update from the health department to put you on the spot? Oh, maybe she's not on. All right. We will just wait for the congressman then, unless there are questions that you guys have from the chamber, or recommendations or suggestions of something that we could do to help you guys right now. I know obviously everybody is in a different situation, but we are here to be your resource and do anything that we possibly can to help you out. Oh, let's see. Tara says her cell's not working, so we're gonna try to do it through cell phones, or her mic isn't working, so. And there's the congressman. Tara, I'm gonna have you hold on, and I'll have you come when he's done. That's all right. Good
Hi, Tara.
Congressman. How you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on. Sorry I'm a few moments late. How's the call going?
It was very good. Very informative. So always nice to hear from the U.S. Chamber and get the breakdown of things. So we will turn it over to you now to give us any updated information that you have.
Well, first of all, yeah, again, thank you for letting me on. I know this is such a time of difficulty, particularly for small businesses, and so much trauma, and we're all working hard to, at least from my perspective, to do two things at once, to try to serve you. We're here. We're trying to take care of individual problems, small business problems, and at the same time participate in a whole variety of national debates that are occurring by Zoom and conference call. So this afternoon, for instance, I'll be on the line with the Secretary of Treasury, and there's a variety of other calls going on. We'll also do a town hall meeting with Nebraskans at noon today with Dr. Gold to give an update on the medical situation. He's the chancellor of the University of Med School. And then the Department of Labor head, John Albin, will be on the phone as well for anybody who's had to face the difficult consequences of unemployment. But anyway, let me thank you for your leadership and everybody who's on the call. Small business is so vital to the well-being of America. We don't think about it very often in those terms. But this entire effort by the federal government has really been to do three things. And I'm very highly supportive of this extraordinary, unprecedented, massive intervention, which is exceptional, but extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures because there is so much suffering and uncertainty. But it's really about three things: protecting our healthcare infrastructure, protecting individuals and families, and protecting small business. And so I'm going to jump to the third component of that, the small business component, since it's most particular to you guys. This Paycheck Protection Program is a good thing. We effectively turned the dynamic over to financial institutions, primarily banks, to manage this for the government, knowing that the government itself could not probably handle the massive amounts of interest in this program, and that's what we've seen. So many banks are just doing tremendous work. I got off the phone with a banker yesterday. They all weekend long, 24 hours, all night long, trying to get applications in. A couple of texts this morning from bankers who I know well personally. And there's another wrinkle in all of this regarding the 10-day turnaround. But again, I've already communicated that to the Treasury Department and may communicate it directly to the Secretary of the Treasury today. That's a little bit of a subchapter of a dynamic here. I can go into that more. But the Paycheck Protection Program, if anybody hasn't taken advantage of it, I think you probably should. It's not to be there to be taken advantage of. It's there to help. This pandemic is no fault of anyone's. It demands a public service response, a government response. I had one small business owner tell me, Jeff, I just hated to take funds from the government, but I needed it. I said, that's exactly what it's there for, to empower you to keep people working, people under your authority who depend upon you, to keep them on the payroll. And if we can do that and keep more people off unemployment, it's a success. This buys the time for the economy to stabilize while we turn the corner on the healthcare pandemic. So with that, I should just stop, and please know that we're here. We're here to help you. My staff has been exhausting themselves one by one. And again, I'm trying to participate in the larger debates across America, but also be in direct dialogue with you all so that we can also learn what you're facing there on the ground and maybe come up with a creative, imaginative response. So look, I think we're going to come out of this hopefully in short order. The consequences of it are obviously going to be with us for a while, particularly the negative economic multipliers. But if this infusion of government help can build that bridge to create stability in the meanwhile, I think once we get a handle on better treatments for the disease, potentially some cure or vaccine down the line, and then maybe we'll see some good things come out of this. I mean, we're making leaps and bounds on telehealth and telecommuting and teleeducation. And maybe some of you have had the experience I've had where your children have come back into the house. 4 of my 5 daughters are here with us now. I wish all 5 were here. Maybe, the experience is a little different perhaps for the parents and the children. But I like this specialness of family time, even in the midst of all of this disruption and uncertainty. But thank you very much. And let me stop there and see if anybody has any questions or ideas and input for me.
Perfect. Any questions for the Congressman? None, huh? We're going to go really easy on him. Christina, did you get your question answered from Ethan before that you mentioned to talk to Congressman Fortenberry about?
Yeah, I did, but I do have another question that just kind of is on my mind. there's, like you said, there's so many SBAs that are struggling right now. Is there a fund or a nonprofit or something that we can donate to help businesses in this time?
That's a generous question, and for which I don't have a ready answer for. The reality from where I sit is that we're just trying to move massive amounts of federal help through the banking system into the hands of small business. So let me cover 3 areas in that regard that I skipped over real fast, and then come back to your question. The Paycheck Protection Program is the primary way in which we are moving assistance to you all. I know many of you have probably already applied and understand it. It's what's available to you is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll from last year. And if you keep people on for 8 weeks, that portion of that loan cost will be forgiven. And it also includes rent and utilities. So it's a good deal. There's another SBA program, which is a traditional program. It's called EDIL. It's a disaster loan program, which has been modified slightly so that persons who apply for that can get a $10,000 grant inside the loan. And those loan payments are also deferred for 6 months, just like the Payment Protection Program. That's a little bit different process. That goes through the SBA. It's more traditional process, a little bit longer. It requires more financials. The Paycheck Protection Program requires only that you certify that you've been adversely affected. The third one out there is an employee retention tax credit that, as I understand it, will be available all year long for keeping employees on the payroll. So that should be helpful as well. Regarding nonprofit institutions, there's lots of businesses, business assistance organizations out there. The Chamber would probably have better information on that. SCORE is one that comes to mind. But I think the banking institutions themselves have shown themselves quite capable of moving this information into the SBA quickly. Individuals can also do it. I just got on the phone with a CPA who was helping his clients do it. So it's designed to be minimally bureaucratic, just a basic certification. I think, if I recall, 6 questions that you have to answer. And then these funds are getting approved. Now, they're not out of the door yet. The wrinkle that I talked about earlier is within the banking system that the SBA Treasury is initially requiring these funds move within 10 days. Well, for the loans that originated over last weekend, that's too heavy of a lift for the banking institutions. So we're trying to get that fixed, and then trying to allow it to align as well with payroll mechanisms that people already have in place, or it could be further disruptive. So we're working on that little wrinkle. But overall, I think the program is working. It's highly successful. The financial institutions seem to be, again, exhausting themselves, but pretty pleased with the way the rollout is occurring, and we're just dealing with problems one by one. Again, let me emphasize to you, if you have a problem with this program or anything else that is affecting you at this moment, we're here. You can call me directly, and the staff is here. We're trying to stay up to speed on all of the various dynamics that are occurring, whether it's, again, in the healthcare infrastructure. There's a whole variety of issues there. There's money rolling out to hospitals now that should be helpful to rural communities for Medicare, quick Medicare reimbursements. About $30 billion is rolling out of the $100 billion we set aside. Again, the main focus this week has been the Paycheck Protection Program. Checks to individuals and families will begin to roll out next week. Anyone with direct deposits should begin to see those funds up to $1,200 per person in their accounts next week. If they don't have direct deposit, they'll get a check. So that's, again, the 3-leg stool approach. If we can, through our social distancing policies and these closures, as painful as it's been, continue to turn the corner on the disease so it doesn't spread as rapidly. We've got some good news out of California and Washington, by the way, in this regard, that their early interventions have actually decreased the spread. We're not seeing that in New York yet, but they were later to implement these policies, and of course, a much denser urban area with a lot more variables. But here in Nebraska, being a bit on the frontier, even our urban areas aren't that dense. We've got that advantage. We've got compliant citizenry, and all of you who are leaders in the community have just taken, sacrificial responsibility to make sure that this works. So Tara, maybe you could give me a little update on the dynamics in Fremont, what you're seeing, and again, any ideas that you have that could employ our services to help, or anything you may need us to work on.
Sure. I think right now we've had obviously a number of businesses that have applied for both the EIDL and the PPP, and it's just the waiting for it to come to them. And I think that's kind of, everyone thought the 3 days and it'd be here, and it's taking us a little bit longer. And obviously the banks were crazy overwhelmed over the weekend, as you mentioned. But they're thankful for everything that you've done as they try to get back to normal. I know a lot of businesses are doing more online, whether it be taking advantage of selling merchandise via their Facebook page or little things like that they can do. And the restaurants are trying their best with carry out and everything. Everyone's just trying to stay afloat right now. We do have a few business owners on the phone right now. Ross and Jeremy, I don't know if you guys want to, Christina, obviously, and Myra, Catherine, there's a lot of you here. If you want to comment at all about kind of the struggles you've had and any help that Congress can give to you guys.
Yeah, I think my struggle right now is in Fremont here is just, you know, we own G-Stop. And so it's just keeping the hours. We are keeping and have kept all of our employees on, but just giving them the hours with the reduced, you know, the reduced sales and how to handle that, right? I feel like at this point I'm just giving them an average of, if I'm not able to give them those hours, I'm increasing that on their payroll to hopefully help, right? And then in goal to hope get this funding in an appropriate time where I'm not taking a huge hit in our banking account, right?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly the idea here. You're doing the right thing. Obviously, you're doing it out of your desire to not just keep your people, but to protect the people who have served you, and that's noble. That's what's coming out here. Again, we tend to overlook this in our country, but you guys who are making things and creating a community setting with inside businesses and exchanging products, this is really the give and taste, the pulse of life. And there comes a time where those of you, again, who have been gifted with the ability to be entrepreneurial and to take risk and have some capital, recognize this deep responsibility you have to take care of people under your employ. So I just want to commend you for doing that, even though sales are down. And that's why that's why we've stepped up and said we've got to keep people employed. Look, I come from business as well. It's not a simple thing to throw a switch and turn off and throw a switch and turn on. It's just, so there's a lot of reasons to keep people employed. Namely, it's the right thing to do. And secondly, if you can hold on, we'll turn the corner on this. And obviously everyone's going to take a hit. There's going to be negative economic multipliers from this. But I do think, again, if we can align the healthcare steps of embracing responsibility, sacrificial responsibility we all have to mitigate the disease spread, buying enough time to get us some more effective treatment, and then roll out in a massive, massive way testing so we know who has it and then, or who doesn't have it, and then who has had it and had no symptoms and therefore has an antibody immunity from it, they can go back to work immediately. And I'm working aggressively. I've put a call into Dr. Burks today. You keep seeing her on television next to the president to get a better handle on the scalability of the test, because envision a moment, maybe this is going to roll fast. It's going to take a couple more weeks, but where these tests fall greatly in price, or maybe the University of Nebraska Medical Center plays a key role, where the testing becomes so ordinary while we're all dealing with this that if you're walking into a public place, you're just automatically tested, and the price of that is very, very inexpensive. So, and again, the key is if people have already had it, they have a natural immunity to it and they can get back to work immediately. So the idea of understanding who has it, who doesn't, who is immune to it, empowering all of that group to go back into the workforce is key to keeping us not only healthy, but also economically viable. I'd like to see that happening in a much more accelerated fashion, or somewhere in between. We got a centralized system and a decentralized system at the same time. So the federal government doesn't control the supply chain for all this. It's up to industry. And at the same time, the federal government has emergency plans in place, but obviously they weren't big enough for this type of pandemic. And the scalability problem has to flow down to local levels, coordinated with states. So all of this takes time. Again, I hope that it accelerates much more rapidly than we've seen in the last couple of weeks, and I think it will. So I think in two to 3 weeks, we're going to, again, much more rapid testing, much more availability, have a better handle on treatments, see the disease decline across the country, and then create some normalcy for everyone. And then hopefully that money that you've applied for flows to you. It's just going to be a couple more days. I mean, the loans, the banks have to do paperwork, then the funds have to be released. So I don't have a good answer on that, but it's not going to be today. I would imagine it's going to be a couple of more days, maybe a little bit longer.
Congressman, I think Myra Catherine has a question for you as well, if you don't mind taking one more question.
Sure.
Thank you. Am I on? Wait. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my husband and I own a childcare center in Fremont. We actually also own a fitness center. So the fitness center is closed, but the childcare center is open. We opened, and we don't limit the amount of kiddos we have who receive Title 20 government assistance. And so what that means is, for a lot of childcare centers that have self-pay families, they're continuing to have that income come in. But Title 20 only pays if a child is there, which makes sense. And I know that the Buffett Institute on Early Childhood Education has requested of our state legislators to waive that, where our Title 20 funding is based on our enrollment versus on attendance during this time. And I was just wondering if you had heard anything about that.
Only indirectly. My staff, Kim Kwapnowski, who many of you know, is on the phone. Kim, we had the same issue come up in Columbus, as I recall. Or maybe it was you, Myra, that wrote me about this. I think it was somebody else in Columbus who actually wrote me about this dynamic. I don't have any further information on that. I'm glad that you, as a group of concerned people in this industry or in this service sector, have petitioned the state government. If you don't hear anything on that quickly, would you get back to Kim, and then we can move that in front of state senators quickly, okay?
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely right. It's one of those quirky things that it's not your fault that they can't be there. It's the right thing that they're not there, but again, the money flow should be there as well.
And I will give you my work cell number.
Thank you.
It is 402-309-9610.
9610. Thank you so much.
You bet.
I better, Tara, thank you. I better leave the call now. I've got a call with one of the undersecretaries of agriculture to talk about the food supply. I talked early on, I called the secretary, who I know well. And in Congress, I'm on this appropriations committee. We basically spend your money. But I have the responsibility of being a ranking member of the agriculture subcommittee. So the secretary is very responsive when we call, but the undersecretary here has been tasked with logistics for food supply. It's not something we're thinking about because we cannot have a disruption there. And there is no disruption. There's some spot shortages that you've seen, but you know, if the pandemic somehow hit a massive numbers of workers in the food industry, that would be very difficult. We've already seen some plant closures. Anyway, I just need to get an update on him on the status of this. I think we're in relatively good shape in this sector, but again, it's one of those invisible forces out there that's for our good that doesn't make the national news, but it's important. So I'm gonna go now and take that call if that's okay. But again, hang in there, everybody. We're here. Again, we're here to help. So if things that you need come up, let us know. And if you want me to plug back into any of these Zoom meetings, I've learned a heck of a lot about this technology. And I've even stopped my dog from barking during these meetings.
That's
so
impressive. Good work.
I'm sitting at home. This isn't actually my office. I'm sitting in those are the first ducks I ever shot, by the way. Interested.
You always have something interesting in your background. I like it. Very good.
I told my staff yesterday, because we do Zoom meetings as well, particularly with the Washington staff, I will roam around my home and set up different backgrounds just for their entertainment. Nobody said anything. That's kind of hurt my feelings.
Oh, that's sad. Well, Congressman, thank you again so much for your time and everything you've been doing for us. We really appreciate it. I know Ross had a question, but I'll just get that to Kim and then she can get the call.
Oh, well, if you want to go for 30 seconds, I got like 1 minute. You want to throw it out? Is it Ross?
Okay, can you hear me? Am I in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so basically, and maybe this has already been answered, but as far as the timeline, I know you said it's been like a couple days where money is supposed to start going out. Is there a timeline where everyone should know by the, like, a cutoff date where everyone should know if they're going to apply or not apply, but qualify for any of the loans or grants that have been put out?
There's no cutoff date, except that if you, well, the other dynamic is we're about to pour more money into this at the congressional level. So this is a popular program. I'm curious as to whether or not there'll be a desire to extend the timing. I don't have an answer on you when the money will flow. There's no cutoff date for application. However, there may be an artificial cap in that they're going to run out of funds. So if you haven't done it, do it quickly. If we do run out of funds, I suspect Congress will actually pour more funds into it, but don't wait. Just go now.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer on when those monies will flow. I think it's going to be fast. It may not be a matter of days, but I'm going to go out on a limb. I don't have anything other than intuition. I bet within 5 to 10 days, those monies will be in your account, if not sooner.
Yeah, because us as a small business, we have applied for as much as we can already, but I just didn't know if there was like a certain time where we may see it, whether it's a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever. So
it's not a month. I would highly doubt it's 2 weeks. I'm going to put it at perhaps about a week to 10 days, maybe sooner. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Congressman. All right. Ross, I did hear yesterday from the National Bankers Association that it was looking at 1 to 2 weeks. So I don't know if that helps at all. Basically what the congressman said, but maybe even a little bit longer. So that's what they said on a call yesterday. Tara, I see that you're on your iPhone now. Do you mind giving us a quick update on?
Yes. Hey, sorry about that. Today is my first day of trying to work from home and getting all the technical glitches out, and the computer doesn't have a microphone that works. So at the health department, we continue to investigate numerous cases. Like the congressman just said, right now our issue is testing. When you look proportionally at the number of tests that we've done for the communities that we serve, those numbers just are not very high, because the testing has to be prioritized based on healthcare workers, public service, first responders, law enforcement, and then of course those that live in vulnerable populations. What I can tell you with the investigations that we have done, a lot of the folks have went to work sick, and unfortunately that's what kind of starts a train derailment for us, I guess, if you will. So as business owners, and I know, this is hard, if you have people that are sick, they need to stay home, because that's how it's going to potentially impact all of you. Now, the other side to this is we also have people who are calling and say they're positive for COVID. Well, come to find out, when we're in the middle of these investigations, or these employers are really, really upset and want to know where they go from here, what we're finding is that they indeed have never been tested for COVID, and they're using this as kind of a get out of work card as well. So what I am telling folks, especially with those in vulnerable populations, so that would be our healthcare workers, our long-term care nursing facilities, our correction facilities, jails, those type of things, first responders, we have to do the very, very best that we can and ensure that we have a process as administration in place to ensure that people are not coming into work sick. Now, unfortunately, what we're finding is people that are asymptomatic can potentially test positive. So how many of those people walking around next to us on the street are also carrying the virus? Unfortunately, a lot of this we don't know yet. So please continue to bear with us as we continue to try to get testing so that we can truly get those tested and really find out and see what that looks like for us here in Nebraska. Now, I will tell you, this weekend is Easter. We need people to stay home. We don't need people going to families' houses. We don't need togetherness, because mark my words, what will happen is if people continue not to take this seriously, you can look out 7 to 10 days from this Saturday and Sunday. And if people hampered down, took this seriously, stayed home, I would hope that we would continue to flatten that curve. But if they don't, this is something that we are going to be continuing to investigate, and we could potentially see an influx of cases if we don't get people to continue with the social distancing and just staying home as much as they possibly can. I know this has been a change, for our society. I know it's been a change for every single one of us. We've had to make some pretty significant life changes ourselves, personally as well. But just if you guys can hang on, bear with us, then this will get us through it even quicker.
All right. Thank you, Tara. Any questions for Tara before we close off this call? Okay. We appreciate all your long hours and hard work for the last month and a half or however long it's been. Seems like a year, but thank you for what you've done.
Yes. No, thank you guys. And know that we are here to be a resource. We're the ones boots on the grounds doing the investigations, dealing with the businesses, dealing with the patients. We're here to be helpful.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. If you have any follow-up call or questions, please don't hesitate to email them to me, and I can reach out to Ethan or the Congressman or Tara. Hang in there. It's got to get better soon, and we are here for you guys. Anything you need, please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.